Alrighty, everybody, welcome back to the Fuzz podcast. Today, I'm thrilled to invite Jacques Snyman to the studio for a bit of an interview. Jacques is the creative manager and at Fuzz Digital, as well as being the host and creator of his own YouTube channel where he does tech reviews. So, yeah, welcome, Jacques.
Thank you for having me.
Right, Jacques, so I'm going to jump straight in here. The way I understand it is you actually wear two hats. One as the creative manager at Fuzz Digital, and then obviously your YouTube channel where you do tech reviews. What sparked your passion for creative industry?
I think for that, we have to take a few steps back, actually. So it initially started off with me going into engineering, studying engineering, then went into working 3 years as an engineer. But in that time, I was very sort of upset and very unhappy with the way things were going and the way my life was going. And I remember one year on holiday, I was like, I need to change this. Like, if I don't change it now, it's never going to change. Mm-hmm. So I need to actually strategically think about what I'm going to do next with my life. And if I don't make that plan, I'm just going to be unhappy for the rest of my life. So that is when I sort of sparked this idea of mine of what did I used to like growing up? What is actual passions of mine, and then sort of figuring out where that fits in and how I can make money off of that. Because at the end of the day, unfortunately, money speaks, you need money to live. So I went on, did a lot of research, thought about what I enjoyed while I was growing up, and I was really big into gaming. And I remember reading a lot of magazines like the NAG magazine. Growing up, reading all of these things, I was like, oh, this is the dream job, right? You just get to play games and you write about games and you just sort of have fun the entire time. And then it also sparked me back to growing up, going to my grandparents' place. My uncle used to be there, so we would play games, me and my cousins, and he would always be there and he would always watch us play and always like engage with us. And I remember that sort of sparking that thing, but isn't there this thing called live streaming? So I went on, did a lot of research, actually went into live streaming, figured out later down the line, like if you want to be successful in live streaming, you need to create other sources of content as well to get discovered. Because live content isn't really discoverable. It's sort of happening as it's happening. So started to make a YouTube channel, sort of decided to go into tech reviews because I love tech. I love watching those sort of things. And I think that sort of sparked the passion for creating and being creative, and that led to the next thing of creating my own company, working with a lot of brands like Sony, PlayStation, Xbox, Razer, all of those sort of big names that you grow up sort of idolizing. And yeah, then that all led to me becoming creative director here, or creative manager.
Nice little snapshot of your fascinating history. Now, I want to shift gears a little bit and talk to you about your role at Fuzz Digital. And obviously with your experience in the industry, your insights on this one. What, in your opinion, makes for good design?
That for me is always a difficult one because it's a very subjective field, art and sort of creative in general. Like what's good for me might not be something that's good for you, and that's why you have people have art on their walls that some people might think looks stupid. But I think there are, of course, elements that make a good design a good design. And it's all about finding the elements that sort of come together to be this one thing that creates that thing. So for me, it's sort of like a pixel. You can imagine a pixel is just a little dot of a solid color. But as soon as you sort of get a lot of pixels together, that creates an image. But one pixel by itself is nothing. And I feel like that's sort of how you can envision the elements of design is one thing, like using negative space, for example, doesn't make for a good design. But as soon as you sort of get all of the elements together and they sort of match and merge and create this amazing piece of art, that's sort of how you can get this subjectively good design. And I think for us here at Fuzz, it's about getting those people and things together. So we have a great team here. We have, of course, the design team. We have data teams. We have everybody else. And sort of coming together to create good designs that are subjectively good is, I think, down to following the data. What works, what doesn't work. So we usually do a lot of A/B testing here. And that is, do we do it in different styles? Do we use different colors? Do we use different imagery? Do we use videos? Do we use static? And then all of that sort of comes together with all of the data, and then we create something that's subjectively good because it performs well. And I think a good design at the end of the day is, does it do what it needs to do? Whether that is tell a story, whether that is create emotion, whether that is just being something that works for a campaign or whatever. So I think for me, a good design can't be judged on how it is created, but rather, does it fit the end goal?
Makes a lot of sense if you're thinking about it from a client's perspective, because they've obviously got their own goals in mind when it comes to campaigns. So if you can follow a decent brief, I guess you'll come up with some really cool stuff. Now, you briefly mentioned video in your last little comment. So, I mean, video content is becoming so much more popular now, and obviously you know that as a YouTuber. So, again, your opinion on this one, what do you think is the real value of video for brands and for marketing?
What makes it so powerful is the ability to tell a story. So you have all of these different techniques. You can use music, you can use voiceovers, you can use imagery that move to convey the story that you want to tell, whether that is emotional, whether that is just excitement, whatever it is that you want to tell. I think the storytelling aspect of a video is just more powerful. But then, of course, we also have all these platforms like TikTok, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts that heavily rely on a lot of people just sitting and doom scrolling the entire day. So because you have that big amount of people or large amounts of people that just sort of scroll through social media, I think video has become so powerful because it's an easy way to get a lot of views on whatever it is that you want to get out there. A lot of these platforms have a lot of data on the people that are actually viewing the content, so they know what they like, how they like it, when they like it. So it's easy for you to sort of market towards whoever you want to market. So if you want to market towards a certain age group, people who are interested in a certain field, it's really easy to get all of that data because they have all of that data. So I think now more than ever, it's really important to jump into video content, especially short form content, because it's really easy to reach people. And for the most part, sometimes really inexpensive to reach people.
Yeah, I think you touched on a couple of very important points. There's one, obviously the value of the content itself, being rich media. It does stop that doom scrolling, get people to engage with the content. You can get a lot of information across to people in a very short space of time. But again, the platforms like Insta and TikTok, that short form is becoming so much more popular than your old school long TVCs. So yeah, super interesting way of looking at it. Yeah, and I also think that another very important part of this is, and you mentioned it in your last response, is the targeting side of things. So creating content that is specific for a certain audience and then leveraging those social media platforms to target that specific audience as well. So yeah, I think very, very powerful way of doing things.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think people shouldn't forget about long form as well. We did mention now that people are doom scrolling, and for me, I feel like it's an easy way to reach people, but sometimes it's not always a good way to reach people because they're not as engaged as with longer formats. So for me, for example, I know that people are more committed to doing things on a platform like YouTube, for example. They're more committed to clicking through to links, clicking through to websites because they're almost more engaged with the content. So they're more invested in the content. So they're more likely to click off to something because they sort of engaged in a way that they were willing to sit there for 8, 10, 20 minutes watching your video. Whereas with short form content, you do have a lot of fast scrolling. Mm-hmm. So if something doesn't catch your eye immediately, people tend to just scroll away. So it's a different ball game. Video content can be seen in a whole lot of different spheres, a whole lot of different aspects. But it depends on what you want to do with your content. I think that is the most important thing. If you want to have people engage more with you, then long form video might be a better solution. But if you just want eyes on your product or on your brand or whatever, then short form might be the best one. So I think it's not just a be all end all. Video is the best thing to do, and I don't think it's just about doing long or short. It needs to be sort of a balance between everything.
So I think if you're going to use the right people, they need to have the expertise in those various fields. So being able to make short form is definitely not exactly the same as making a longer version for a long format video. So I'm glad that you actually went in that direction, because I want to shift gears slightly and talk about your YouTube channel, your own personal YouTube channel. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the intro, that Jacques is the proud owner and he started his own YouTube channel, and that's predominantly focused on tech reviews.
That's correct, yes.
Tell me a little bit about that, Jacques.
So for the most part, I think, like I said before, the content creation thing sparked fairly early in the creative field for me. And one thing that I really am passionate about is tech. And I've always sort of loved doing research on the newest tech, newest smartphones, newest whatever. I just love looking at tech, even though I can't always buy it. My wife always gets so annoyed with me. I sit on car websites and build out cars and then just never buy them. And it's like, why buy them when I can just spec them and that's it? For me, I'm a very sort of tech nerd in all of that. And I think for me, that was really the easiest way to go forward with just starting to create content. Because at the end of the day, you need to enjoy what you're doing. Because in the beginning, it's very demotivating. So you start off, you put a lot of effort in this video, you write the script, you film it. It doesn't always look good initially, but then you put this video out there for people to see. And then you get 1, maybe 2 views. And then you have to pull yourself together and be like, cool, next week I'm going to do this again. And then you do it again and you get 2, 3, 4 views. And then eventually you get, maybe that one video gets through, but because the quality isn't there, people start having negative comments about it. Getting yourself through that initial phase of pulling through and saying like, you know what, let's ignore the views, let's ignore this. This is a long journey that you need to do is extremely difficult. I don't think a lot of people get through that phase. I think a lot of people eventually jipper themselves through that phase. So they either just pay people to watch their videos or they get a lot of friends to just watch it, which is not a bad thing, but it's also not the best way going forward. So I think for me, starting off that journey was extremely difficult.
Just a quick one. How long ago did you start your channel?
So that was around 2020. That was sort of the time I started. At that point in time also, I was still working, still sort of getting my life together. So it wasn't as frequent as I would have loved it to be at that point. I think I started in Jan and then only picked up again in like September after taking like a few months break. But for me, that sort of pulling through, getting through, but then also viewing data and actually being very analytical with yourself and sitting down and being like, what did I do wrong? How can I fix this? What does the data say? Like, where do people drop off? Why do they drop off there? I think YouTube is a very analytical game that not a lot of people understand. Yes, you can sort of get analytics and create this magical video that just works, but sometimes it's not as easy, and it's sometimes about emotion. Do you portray enough emotion? Do you portray the right message to people? And also just understanding who your target audience is. So once again, going to the analytics, seeing what your age group is, seeing are they predominantly male or female? Where are they based in the world? All of those things, once you have all the data, you can create videos that actually speak to the right audience, because one thing might not work for some other group of people and just need to figure out what works.
Well, I mean, if you only started about 4 years ago and it started off quite slowly as a side hustle to where you are now getting over 100, couple of 100,000 views on most of your videos, really, really well done on that. And you touched on the data side of things of YouTube. Yes, incredibly powerful platform, as with many of the social media platforms out there and we mentioned targeting and stuff, but with the new, well, not new, but the slightly more heavy lean on artificial intelligence right now, AI has become so powerful and it's so accessible at the moment. Where do you see the future of AI in your field right now?
So I think the biggest concern for a lot of people in the creative field is that AI is going to replace them. I think that AI isn't necessarily going to replace people, especially in the creative field. I think it's going to become a very powerful tool that creatives can use to actually get the message across that they really want to get across. For now, to sort of give a brief overview is, if you are creating content, whether that is a video for yourself, whether that is an ad, whether that is a documentary, whatever it is you want to be, there's sort of two primary ways of getting content. It's either you need to go out there yourself and film that. So whether that is filming a car, filming a product, filming a landscape, you have to either create it, or you can sit down, do graphical editing, whatever you want to do, create a design. Or the second one is go onto stock libraries. So let's say you want to get a nice mountain shot, you can go to all of these stock library websites and you download something. But usually that means that you either need to have the physical thing. So sometimes you may get the shot, you might get a corrupted memory card and lose all of that footage. You might just forget to take the shot. You might not think of it at that time. It does happen. But then trying to find it in stock libraries can be difficult. So then you either sometimes find the exact same thing that you want, or you have to settle for something that's similar enough that it will work. And the use of AI, we've seen AI do a lot of amazing things in video and like still images as well. But having the ability to prompt something, whether that is get a landscape, get a specific color car, having the ability to go in and just say, I need this clip, this thing needs to do this, it needs to be in this setting. It's going to be a very powerful tool in your sort of creation arsenal, because you can get exactly what you want and you don't have to settle for something that might work. So I think AI, for me, I'm really excited about getting to a point where you can get a video exactly the way you want it and it just works. Like, you don't have to settle for anything. And I think we at Fuzz even, we use a lot of AI. So we use a lot of AI in still images. We use it for copywriting. So albeit we don't use the exact thing that it's given, but getting something as a starting point or getting something for a specific background just really helps you. Instead of having to sit for hours and scrolling through different sites getting the perfect background, you can just go and prompt AI and say, I want a wooden background with these lights, and you just get it.
I was actually going to ask you if you are actively using AI right now, because I saw some ads that I think your team designed around the beginning of May, around the 4th of May.
Yeah.
But that's Star Wars Day, right? May the 4th be with you vibes. And I saw some stuff there with some sunglasses and characters from Star Wars.
Yeah.
Now, is that predominantly driven with the AI tech?
So that was predominantly, I would say, about 60% driven by AI. So we were able to prompt different Star Wars characters. So we were able to say Luke Skywalker in a certain setting wearing sunglasses just to sort of get your base. And then what we did is we actually edited different sunglasses on them, because we run the Smith store, of course. So we just sort of edit sunglasses on top, and then you have this entire image that would have taken you quite a long time to get all these different elements together. And now all you need to do is you just prompt the one thing and you replace sunglasses and you're done. So I think, once again, AI is a very powerful tool to get you to a point where you have sort of a starting off point, and then you just sort of take it further to create something really unique.
It seems like it's the sort of the framework. So you've mentioned copy as well as design. So
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are using AI from a copy perspective, but it's quite refreshing to know that from a creative side and from an imagery side of things, there's definitely tools that are out there. It's a bit weird because we're having an interview, and I'm having an interview with a guy who's a creative lead in a creative digital agency, and all we've been talking about is technology and data. But obviously we know that data is king these days in the digital world. So how do you think that that's going to play a role going forward with your creative process, like the actual data side of things?
Like I said, data is a big thing for me, coming from a background of being on YouTube. So just to sort of recap again, like YouTube for me is predominantly data. Even though it seems like a very creative field, you're creating videos, you're creating content, it is very much backed with data. And I think creative and being in a creative industry is going to be backed by data. And if you're not backing your content or whatever it is that you're making with data, then you're sort of just creating something for nothing. There's a lot of briefs and a lot of things that you get, but at the end of the day, that brief ties to either a product or a specific type of person. And even if you're creating a product, you need to know who you're creating that product for. And behind all of that is data. So you need to know who's primarily going to use that, who you're trying to target, who can buy that product or who wants to buy that product. And I think once you combine the data with your creative, that is really when you get powerful creative, because then you know exactly who and what you're creating for. So if you create a very vibrant image, you're going to get a really young, happy crowd out of that. So we've seen it a lot with Audi. We've seen it a lot with Mercedes, where the intro level cars, so like the A-Class Mercedes or the Q2s and all those sort of things, those are really primarily aimed towards a younger generation, because it's the more affordable cars. It's the more like starting out a family, you buy a smaller type SUV. So their marketing has really shifted to a younger crowd where the marketing was really focused on like professionals and professionals working for years, where even now, like young professionals are people who can afford that sort of type of vehicle or type of smartphone or whatever it is. So a lot of the data, once again, of who buys their cars, who has the money, all of that shifted the entire marketing platform and the entire sort of marketing plan to a younger crowd. So once again, I think data is king when it comes to most things, and having the right data will definitely drive your creative. And if it's not, like I said, then you're just sort of creating for thin air for someone to hopefully pick it up and understand what it is that you're creating.
And I completely agree with you. For so many years, data and the numbers have driven the thinking behind what you're going to do with your media and where you're going to be spending your money, but very, very rarely did it actually filter down to the creative agencies. And creative agencies were creating amazing, beautiful looking ads, but they weren't talking to the audience that the marketing people were trying to speak to. So I really appreciate the fact that that's the sort of direction that you're going in. But yeah, Jacques, it's been fantastic having a chat to you. It's been really cool from my side, learning a little bit more about who you are and what you do. And yeah, I think there's just a hell of a lot of exciting stuff on the cards for you, regardless if it's data or AI driven, with your YouTube channel and obviously with leading the creative team at Fuzz. I think there's a great future ahead for you there, my friend.
Thank you very much.
Just a reminder, if you wanted to catch up with Jacques, you can actually go and find him on YouTube. Go and have a look at this young man. He knows a hell of a lot about tech stuff. So just go and search Jacques Snyman on YouTube and he will come up there. And yeah, I just want to thank everybody for taking the time to listen and to watch the videos. And yeah, just feel free to hit the little like button, leave us a comment, pop onto our website, fuzz.digital, if you want to learn a little bit more about what we do at the company.